Now we're going to move on to this row of 5-gallon black grow bag dwarfs here for my second update for Wednesday. Starting with this plant right here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get out of this. This is a serendipity, the seed of which came from a plant that's either heart or pea-shaped last year, found by a grower in Iowa. And Amanda found this, and it's flowering. We'll have to see what the fruit shape is. The second dwarf that we're going to look at here is a potato leaf dwarf. Whose tag eludes me. Here we go. This is Dwarf Creamsicle, and I named this. It came out of a Tipsy line. Came out of one of our Dwarf Blazing Beauties, and it's a really interesting pale yellowish orange, almost an ivory color, and the flavor was wonderful. So waiting for that to bud will be a little bit on the later side. This potato leaf dwarf here is Brandy Fred. Came from a cross that one of our growers, Vince in California, made between Brandywine and one of our dwarfs, Dwarf Wild Fred. Should be large fruited potato leaf in purple. It's going to be a bit later. This plant here is Serendipity, and I'm aiming for a larger fruited selection here, and you can see the flowers. We haven't gotten fruit set yet. And this is a Serendipity cherry, so we've seen some fruit size variation, and we'll see if we can actually get some different named varieties out of the line just based on the fruit size, and hope that the flavor is there, of course. And we have open flowers on Serendipity cherry. This is a peppermint stripes that I had to replace, so this is a fairly late planting, and it's this is the second of the plants that I'm growing. It's a little bit behind. And here is another confetti. And confetti is the one that, out of the beauty line, that I'm hoping is yellow with pink stripes. This is a tasty wine. Tasty wine is Brandywine times Tasty, which again Vince in California created, and this is looking great. There's some open blossoms at the top. The first year I tried Tasty wine, an earlier selection, it had the flavor of Brandywine, and last year we didn't quite have the flavor, so I'm hoping we found it again in some of the ones we're growing this year. This is Dwarf Wild Spudleaf, which is Dwarf Wild Fred crossed with Spudleaf, which is Spudicky, I believe, which is a potato leaf Cherokee purple, cross made by Vince in California, and it's going to be a later one. Should be a large fruited purple. It's just budding at the top. This regular leaf dwarf is one of the fancy offspring that I've talked about previously, and again it's going to be on the late side. It's just starting to bud. And then we have a series of plants from the Evalde cross, and we hope to find some potato leaf pinks and bicolors out of this. Large fruit, either regular or potato leaf. This first one is a potato leaf selection. I grew a half dozen of these last year and am trying out some of the best ones. It's got some large buds near the top. The second one from a different line, also potato leaf, not quite as advanced. And these two are showing the relative vigor and height, and this is indicative to me of what we see in some of the potato leaf dwarfs like Nosy. They tend to be quite vigorous and quite tall in comparison, though still dwarfs. Foliage is not as rugose, but it has the thick stem and the compactness. And this came from a regular leaf bicolor, and it's already blossoming like crazy. And this came from a large regular leaf pink. So both of these Evaldes are looking really good. Here's a plucky from 3959 that's regular leaf, and it's a little bit behind. I think this was a later planting. And here we have a leggy seedling. This is another one of the fairly recent crosses that we're hoping is a paste type, and it's got very long sepals, so that's pretty hopeful that we're going to see maybe a dwarf paste. And I only found one certain dwarf in growing at the F2s. There's one questionable one I'll show in a little bit. And the final dwarf in this row to describe and show is a Sturt Desert Pea. This is one that Petrina found and named, and I've not grown it yet. The plant looks fantastic, and it's just starting to bud on the top. Really, you'll notice I pulled off a leaf stem affected by a little bit of early blight, but for the most part these we've had a season where everything's been quite healthy. Knock on wood, we hope it stays that way. And that's it for the second row for today.